Welcome to the Journey Podcast, where we share some of the most inspiring stories on the planet, life lessons, and tools that will help you navigate through your own personal journey. On this episode, you will find a segment from our weekly life coaching platform, the Dream Nation Breakfast Club. Feel free to tune in live on Zoom every Tuesday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern via dnbreakfastclub.com. I am your host, Josh Valentin. Welcome, everyone. We have the one and only Mrs. Keia Valentin on with us this morning. So we're super excited to be covering some great information here today. Let me just share let me share this to our group, our Knowledge and Inspiration group, and we should be all good to go. Let us know where in the world you are tuning in from. All right. We're about to get this show on the road. Welcome. All right.
I'm just going to share it to my groups.
Okay, let's see here. Once we share this on the group, we'll be getting started. Send out those last-minute invites to anyone who can get value. For those of you who want to engage with us live, hop over to dnbreakfastclub.com. If you want to engage with us live on Zoom, you could also ask some questions on Zoom. So, all right. Let's see here. Okay, we are live. Let's get this show on the road. So welcome to the Dream Nation Breakfast Club. Excited to be here with you all. Grand Rising, everybody. We're about to get this show on the road. This morning is going to be special because we have the one and only Mrs. Keia Valentin on with us. So let's just see here. I see we have some special people on the line. Shout out to see we got Tamion, Georgie. What's going on? We got Jersey in the house, Tennessee in the house. Shout out to everyone who's tuning in on the West Coast. 3 hours early at 4 a.m. on the West Coast. So shout out to everybody tuning in on that side of the world. We're about to get this thing rolling. Let's see here. Just want to make sure that we're all set up and we'll be good to go. All right. So let's just hop over. Make sure you guys are all good on Facebook and we'll get this thing going. Okay. 1 second. All right, so we're about to get this show on the road. Let's get this thing going. Welcome, everybody. Excited to be here with you all. Josh Valentin here. For those of you who are wondering what have you been invited to, maybe this is your very first time hopping on the Breakfast Club. Welcome if this is your very first time. My name is Josh Valentin. This is my phenomenal wife, Keia Valentin, and today we have a really exciting topic. We're going to be covering everything wealth building in 2024. So it's going to be super valuable. I know that money is a huge pain point for the vast majority of people. Probably the number one demand in the world is to make more money. So we're going to be covering not only just making money, but building wealth and what does building a wealthy foundation look like? Yeah. A foundation of wealth for your family, a foundation of wealth for yourself, for your legacy, all of that. And I couldn't think of a better person to bring on the Breakfast Club other than my wife, who is a wealth strategist. She's a wealth coach. She teaches on this. This is her life's work. So I know you guys are going to be able to get a lot of value from this. So we got New York City in the house. Shout out to everyone tuning in from Florida as well. Shout out to my Tampa Bay Buccaneers who won last night in the wild card round of the playoffs. And sorry for those of you who, I know we have our Philly attendees who tune in with us every week. So God bless your souls. It is all good. You always got next year. So all right. So let's get this show on the road. Before we get this thing kick started, I just wanted to share a few snippets with you all. And then we'll go into the bulk of what we're going to be talking about here today. And if this is your very first time on the Breakfast Club, in case you're wondering what this is all about, it's not always centered around money, but it's pretty much everything that can make your life better. So one week we may be covering mindset, we may be covering leadership, we may be covering anything pertaining to personal development, life coaching, all of that. So come on every single week. You could always find something different. If you would like to tune into past recordings, you can hop over to my personal Facebook page and see past recordings of the Breakfast Club as well. So, all right. Great morning, everyone. Shout out to everybody in New York because I know it's snowing out there. So Lance, be safe out there, brother. And yes, let's get this show on the road. So the very first snippet is seek third alternatives. Observe an upcoming meeting and identify if synergy is or isn't occurring. Think of a problem that would benefit from synergy. Use it to seek a third alternative. Really good snippet. You want to share the back?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, ask yourself, when am I likely to settle for compromise? When do I experience synergy? What's the difference? Synergy depends on a willingness to seek a third alternative. More than just my way or your way, it's a higher, better way. It's something that neither of us would have come up with on our own. Like that. Oh, what is synergy? Simply defined, it means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Synergy means that 1 plus 1 may equal 10 or 100 or even 1,000.
Really, really good
That's really
share.
good.
And even as it pertains to wealth building, I think synergy is a big part of it because if you're in a relationship, many times you're going to have different perspectives, different
Yeah.
points of view. The biggest pain point in marriage typically is the communication around money as well. And sometimes it does help to find that middle ground, to
Yeah.
find some kind of commonality, see where, you ultimately share the same values or the same perspectives, and maybe you may have different ideas about going about the wealth, but you could very well just go about it in a way that you kind of help each other meet
Yeah.
as many of your needs as possible. So really good share. So let's just see here. Years ago, I got hooked on a habit. Not me. This is in the book. This isn't my book, by the way. This is Giant Steps by Tony Robbins. But years ago, I got hooked on a habit that has turned out to be one of the most valuable of my life. Reading at least 30 minutes a day. And Jim Rohn, one of my teachers, told me that reading something of substance, something of value, something that was nourishing, something that taught you new distinctions was more important than eating. Miss a meal, he said, but don't miss your reading. So while you are taking the 10-day mental challenge and cleansing your system, nourish it with reading material that yields insights and strategies to guide you in the new lifestyle you've chosen. Remember, leaders are readers. So in our case, where we may not be doing the 10-day mental challenge, but we're doing a 21-day transformation challenge. If you're kicking off the new year, maybe you have your New Year resolutions going. I know for us, we're in the middle of a 21-day fast.
Yep.
So whatever challenge you're in, or if you're just simply in New Year resolutions mode, always integrate some degree of personal development. What would you say is your number one book that you would recommend to people that you love? What has been your favorite personal development book, or just a book that can help people?
I really like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Oh, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I really love that book because I feel like it gives a great foundation for how we should go about our thoughts and manifesting and turning that into action. So yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Think and Grow Rich is definitely one of those foundational books, especially for those of you who are on the path of building wealth.
Mhm.
It is absolutely essential to just add that to your repertoire of knowledge on wealth. So really great shares. So we'll jump right into it, everyone. Let's just see here. Also, again, if you're just jumping on, let us know where in the world you are tuning in from. And if you have any questions, if you're on Zoom and you have any questions, drop them in the comment thread. We'd love to answer any questions centered around wealth building. So throughout the entire session, you guys are more than welcome to ask your questions. And for the most part, we'll jump right into it. So I see we got Israel, Tel Aviv. A shout out to everyone in Tel Aviv. We have Jamaica. Shout out to everybody in Jamaica. Yes, yes. Awesome. All right. So where do we start? There's so many different things that we can cover as it pertains to wealth. We also have a podcast that episode that we've done. If you hop over to the Journey podcast with Josh Valentin,
Mhm.
Keia was my very first guest on the podcast. If you haven't checked it out, I would recommend it because I think that podcast encompasses a lot of our ideas around building
Yeah.
wealth, especially as a family, as
Mhm.
a couple,
Mhm.
and also just individually our different perspectives. So that's a really great overview. But today we wanted to give you guys some practical tools that you can take away in 2024, things that you can use. We're in a different time, I would say.
Yeah.
And these are definitely important times for the sake of your legacy and building wealth. There's so much happening in the economy, in the world, and I'll ask you, what do you feel? What are your views right now in the state of the world, the state of the economy, and as it pertains to wealth? What
Mhm.
what do you feel like is the most important thing for going about your wealth, specifically in this economy in 2024?
Well, I think in just about any economy, even this economy, I'm always that person that says your personal economy should be something that you can control and that shouldn't be affected or minimum, how it's affected based on what's going on in the wider world. So I know, everyone has different views on the economy. Some people are really optimistic, some people are pessimistic. I'm pretty optimistic about everything. I know it depends on, what information you're taking in and all of those things, but the reason I'm optimistic about what's going on is because our personal economy, it may be affected in some ways, but not significantly to the point where we're gonna lose our shirt or lose our home or, so it's always making sure your personal economy is intact, that you have control over that, that no matter what is going on, whether it's in the world or you're in your job, in your business, it doesn't matter what it is, your personal economy is still thriving. So to me, that's how I always look at things. It really doesn't matter what's going on because I know our personal economy is good, and that's something that we should all focus on, making sure that we have that intact.
Absolutely. What would you say is different about the state of the world economically, and just what do people have to do? Is it the fundamentals pretty much remain the same throughout history, or is it where you have to sort of adapt to a changing world?
Mhm.
Because there's so many different things as it pertains to wealth, so many different financial vehicles. There's so many different ways of going about building wealth. There's 1,000 ways to score a goal here,
Yeah.
right? So is there anything different you feel in terms of the wealth building process in 2024 than it's been over the last several years?
That's a great question. And I mean, if we look at history, right, when we were on the gold standard, if you're in America with when President Nixon took us off, saving money made sense in those days, like the retirement funds and saving this nest egg and all of those things that made sense, right? So your parents may have had that era where it's like, okay, if I just put aside money for retirement, I'll be good. But in today, with inflation, with high interest rates and everything, and I know that, they're working on bringing them down even more. But, right now, it's really about creating cash flow. It's really about making your money work for you. It's about making sure that you're earning interest above the inflation rate. Also, when you include taxes and fees and all of those things, like the interest that you're earning should be above that because that's the only way to get ahead, to create a tailwind, right? For you. Right now, there's lots of headwinds. You have inflation, you have obviously taxes, debt, like there's a lot of debt, all of these things. So it's just putting yourself in a position where now your money is doing double time. It's working for you and it's able to allow you to not just keep up with what's going on with inflation, but to surpass that, to get ahead of it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. What are your views around just how with the economy, sometimes people feel like the president that comes into office. We're about to, possibly have a new president or even stay with the same president, and it can go either way, obviously. But some people feel like the whoever's in office is going to play a major role in terms of like their personal economy. You spoke a little bit about personal economy. Do you feel like it matters at all in terms of what president or what administration is currently in office?
Mhm.
What are your views around that specifically? Is it where like, well, if we're in a Republican, administration, we're going to thrive a lot more, or if we're in a Democrat? What is your personal take around all of that? Do you feel like the administration affects your personal economy, or is something that you just kind of have to adapt and maneuver around?
I would say it affects your economy to a certain degree, but just like in anything, it's finding ways to adapt and to figure out what is the best approach or the best move forward. So people have been thriving, through all types of things,
Hmm. Hmm.
whether it's change of presidents, recessions, depressions, like
Yeah.
all of those things. So to me, it's all about having that financial education and the knowledge to be able to adapt,
Yeah.
be able to change, and to be able to keep moving forward. And it really starts with the education. It starts with financial education and then taking action.
Yeah, I
So,
definitely agree with that for
mhm,
sure. What would you say are some practical tips? I know we're in tax season right now.
yeah.
So for a lot of people, they have a lot of anxiety during tax season. And I know if you're an entrepreneur, it can be even more challenging because with a traditional, let's say W-2, you probably are going to get a return. But maybe if you're upper middle class, there may be no return and you have anxiety around having to pay a bunch of money.
Mhm.
But for your average 1099 person, or if you just are self-employed, there can be a lot of anxiety because now it's your time to pay taxes. We don't really pay taxes like your traditional W-2 person where it's taken out throughout the year.
Mhm.
This is the time where you have to cough up that bread to Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
So in terms of just going about, let's say tax season and even getting like a refund check. I know a lot of people do get refund checks.
Mhm.
What would you recommend for your average person during this specific time frame?
Okay. So you should always have your money in an environment that is a tax advantage environment. So even let's say you're a W-2 and you get a refund, you want to definitely get that cash into a vehicle that can allow you to grow your money tax free. So that is definitely one. If you're an entrepreneur like ourselves, before you cough up that money, you should get it in a tax free environment. So either way, whether it's before or after, but you just want to get it into a vehicle that can allow you to save on those taxes, that can continue to grow even while you're using the money to pay the taxes or whatever you're going to use it for, but to be able to put yourself in a position where you still control that money even though you're using it to pay taxes or you're getting a tax refund.
For sure.
Mhm.
What would you recommend for the average person that maybe, let's just say, they've been struggling financially for years. Maybe they
Mhm.
haven't really solidified a financial foundation and they really don't know where to start. I know financial IQ is a big a part of building wealth. You have to understand money. And I think
Right.
that for most people, it just seems too complicated. Maybe they weren't really taught money principles
Mhm.
from their family or from school, whatever the case may be. What would you say for the average person are a few fundamentals, like things that are a must for your average person looking to solidify a financial foundation?
Okay. Number 1, definitely invest in your financial education. You have to raise your financial IQ. Like, you have to. It is essential because if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how money works, you're going to create a drag on your wealth. You're going to erode your wealth. They say debt and taxes are the greatest eroders of wealth, but what it really comes down to is you. So debt and taxes, we all have those things, but we all operate differently based on our financial IQ. And that's straight common sense, right? So you definitely want to invest in your financial IQ. Number two, that's foundational, obviously, is life insurance, because that's something that, especially if you have a family, if you have dependents, that's something you can put in place quickly that will allow, if God forbid something happens to you, that your family's good. At least they can weather some storms. Like we use our policies, our life insurance policies in terms of our wealth creation and growth. So that's more of the advanced way. But even at the bare minimum, even at just the foundational, everyone should have it, because it's inevitable that we're all going to graduate from this earth, right?
Absolutely.
So that is absolutely foundational as well. And then just having a plan, planning ahead, having something in place. I feel like many people don't plan enough. We plan for that dream body we're going to have. We plan for, that vacation we're going to take. We plan for all of these things. Like we're going to South Africa, we're planning now, but in terms of finances, it's foundational that you have a financial plan, that you have a blueprint, that you know where you're going and you know how to get there.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I have to put out a quick disclaimer, right? We're not tax advisors, or
no.
we're not we're not giving investment advice or anything like that. So seek out the professionals in, this world as well. We're just kind of here to let you know what works for us and kind of help guide you in the right direction.
Mhm.
But you have to also, you have to hire people that are very competent in this field. So we've been dealing with the same accountant for many years
Yep.
that is just on top of his game in terms of understanding, for example, like the IRS or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. But I know there's a lot of talk around getting a fiduciary, or brokers or whatever. What's your views around brokers or fiduciaries, or just getting financial advice from an quote unquote expert? And I know this could be a bit controversial,
Right.
but I know we know better, knowing what we know now. But for a lot of people, they typically just give their money away to a 401k or a broker to kind of handle everything for them,
Yeah.
and they leave a lot of money on the table. So
That's a
yeah.
great question. He is choosing violence today, guys. So, I'm not against necessarily all advisors, or, like I do feel like they are beneficial depending on where you are. You may be someone that is extremely busy. You may be someone that doesn't have the time and you need someone to, let's say, manage your money. However, I find that no matter how busy you are, you should at least have a grip or understanding on what's going on with your money, right? And a lot of the times when you look at the different fees and everything you're paying, let's say if you get an advisor, you you may pass out, if you really did the math and you really saw what a drag it is on your wealth creation. So I'm not saying all are bad fiduciaries, in the same token, you do have different types of fiduciaries. So it's just important to do your research overall, and it's important to understand what portion of your money is going to fees, what portion do you actually get back, how that money is going to create wealth for you, because a lot of the times, people, when it's like a roller coaster, it's up and down. Like one minute they have $10,000, the next minute they have $1,000. You want to understand how your money is operating in whatever system you have it in, what that looks like in the future. It's a lot of variables, And me personally, I don't like to do guesswork. I don't like variables at all. Like I like to know exactly what everything is.
Yeah.
So what my variables entail, and I don't wanna do guesswork far into the future. I wanna know what it's going to look like tomorrow, the next year, 10 years down the line. I like not doing guesswork, and I don't like, having those variables. So I'm not saying that it's all bad. I think, they do have their place. However, we're very intelligent people. The difference between, let's say, someone who is like better off, a lot of the times, it's the difference in education. It's the difference in their financial education and their resourcefulness as well. And so even if, like, let's say you don't have the money, you have to figure out how to get the money, you know what I mean? Like, to invest and to do all of these different things you can do. But a lot of the times there are people that get money, but they just don't know what to do with it. And what ends up happening is they end up squandering it. And if they just had the financial education on it, a lot of the times they would make better decisions. So I believe that we have the ability to be able to do extremely well financially. I do believe that we don't need an advisor for that all the time. I do believe that we can take control of our own finances and be able to accelerate our wealth.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What would you say is for our community specifically, like we don't come from money,
Mhm.
none of us do. We don't come from wealth. Like
Right.
Keia had more so working class family,
Yeah.
right? Kia's mom was an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Her dad, worked a traditional job, and my dad worked a traditional job. My mom didn't even work.
Mhm.
And for us, we kind of had to learn a lot of these principles.
Right.
But what would you say is the most common mistake people make from our community, like some of the biggest mistakes, or the ways they go about their wealth that's the most detrimental towards building wealth?
Mhm. We don't put our money towards more assets and like tax advantage vehicles. A lot of the times, like I said, comes down to education again, but a lot of the times that those dollars are spent very quickly, and many times they're not spent on things that are going to bring us back money. So I feel like within our community, because and it's getting better, you know what I mean? It's getting better.
Mhm.
But a lot of the times it's just not knowing what to do. And so the money is spent on things that aren't going to bring us a return, things that don't make sense long term. And, for sustainability, we just spend it on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree that it's getting better, mainly because there's just so much more information out
Yes.
there. And you see even people from our culture, people from our community now advocating for building wealth, for ownership, for multiple streams of income,
Right.
for financial education.
Mhm.
And now our people are becoming more receptive because you have people who look like us, who come
Yes.
from our world, that are the ones teaching this information.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
but it's still important to find the right advice,
Yeah.
because you don't want to just follow any guru or
No.
expert out there.
Everyone's an expert
Everyone's
today.
an expert,
Yeah.
right? So I think it is important to make sure that you're finding the right mentorship. I know for us, we followed the smart money, so we essentially looked at people who had what we wanted in life, people who were really doing this wealth game at a high level, and we seeked the best
Right.
in the world, whether it be insurance, whether it be taxes and credit and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
now, going back to life insurance, I know that a lot of people in our community are parents. And what would you recommend in terms of building generational wealth? And I think I once heard that for the uber wealthy,
Mhm.
typically they're thinking as far as 4 generations,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, what would you say is one of the most important things in terms of building generational wealth, legacy wealth for your children, your grandchildren, and so on and so forth, and the integration of policies with that?
Yeah. Okay, that was a lot. So I'm gonna do my best to encompass all of it. So in terms of generational wealth, and I'll tell you guys just what we do as well is we are thinking for 10 generations down the line. So we create a system that allows us to use life insurance policies, that allows us to use the money today for whatever it is that we need to do with it. So whether that is maybe investing, paying for groceries, different things like that. But the point is, we can use it today, and also our children benefit from it in the future. Because I'm not about life deferment. I do believe you should still enjoy your life while you're here on earth, right? We should all enjoy our lives. However, we still need to be able to plan for the future at the same time. So I guess in football, say offensive and defensive, doing both at the same time. So, with the integration of life insurance policies, we've been able to create that system, whereas our money can keep working for us, our principal can keep working for us, even when we're using it to do other things and to accelerate our wealth even further. And so many wealthy people use these life insurance policies in this way to be able to grow their money, our money, in a tax-free environment, which is important because, as I mentioned earlier, taxes is one of the drags on wealth creation, right? Also, to be able to capture those interests that usually we would give to the bank. Like, let's say, for example, the credit cards, the loans, the mortgages, all of these different things, being able to bring that back into our family instead of giving that to the major banks.
Yeah.
And, when you keep more wealth within your family, then you're able to take that wealth even further into future generations. A lot of the times we pay a lot in fees. You see it, fees for everything. I mean, even going to the grocery store the other day, and I'm not saying we shouldn't donate to charities and stuff, okay? So don't twist my words here, okay? I'm not saying we shouldn't donate to charities, but even, I went to the grocery store and the lady was like, "Would you like to give to this charity?" And, a lot of the times people want to say no sometimes, but they don't because they want to give, or the tip machine that the percentages come up automatically.
Yeah.
And so not only do we have fees in like the traditional sense, but also now with when we go to the grocery store, so we're paying for groceries and paying for other things, and some people feel guilty about that, right? So it's all of these things that are taking all of these different fees and interest rates and all of those things. So having the ability to keep that within the family, to bring that back into the family so that it could be used for future generations,
Yeah.
whether that is going to college, whether that is even maintaining health insurance on your future generations. That's something Josh and I we're always talking about, like, what could we do for our future generations to make sure that they are in a better situation?
Yeah.
And, our policies allow us to do that. When we graduate from this earth, our trust will allow, our trustee to maintain, let's say, health insurance on all of our kids and grandkids to make sure that's not an issue for them. So it's definitely about like planning, but using policies as a foundation to be able to do that, but to live now, but also in the future. So when I think about generational wealth, it's just creating a system that allows you to have the advantage today, whether it's taxes and interest and all of those things, but allowing your kids and grandkids to also have those advantages in the future, because now they don't have those drags
Yeah.
on their wealth. So it's doing two things at the same time.
Absolutely. One of the things that I'm so adamant about, even sharing when it comes to generational wealth as well, is the fact that passing down wealth is definitely important, right? But it's also the principles, it's also the values, it's those things. So, for example, you can pass down millions of dollars to your children, to your grandchildren, but if they don't have the principles, if they don't have the values, then it's not going to continue on through the generations.
Right.
So it's essential that, yeah, you learn the money principles, but you're also building a solid foundation within your family structure. So another thing that comes to mind, we spoke about this. We went to a restaurant a couple days ago, and one of the things that we had spoke about was just the idea of passing down work ethic.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the biggest threats to our wealth long term in this specific generation is because the kids have it so good,
Yeah.
right? They can just play video games and they're fed by their parents, and they don't really have to, they don't have that grittiness that we had in the last generations. So when it comes to just preserving the wealth, you also have to pass down generational work ethic.
Yeah.
That's a big part of the process, especially for those of you who are, let's say, single moms, for example. You may have a young man that you're doing everything you possibly can to give him the world, and you're spoiling him, and maybe you're in a situation where you're spoiling him even more because maybe the lack of a father figure or something like that. And you have to remember that as much as we want to give to our kids and spoil our kids, they need to do hard things. They need to learn discipline, they need to learn work ethic, and you have to challenge them. Give them different circumstances where they're challenged, and they have to learn the value of money, the value of work ethic, and actually working for what it is that they want.
Yeah.
So I know for our kids, they love video games. And one of the things that we typically do with them is they have to earn it.
Yeah.
So whether it be a point system, I remember a year ago we were doing stars. They had to accumulate a certain amount of stars. And we're very adamant about them working for whatever it is that we're going to gift them, and letting them know, like, hey, we work our tails off so that you guys can live this lifestyle. And also, I got frustrated the other day because one of our kids was like, "I'm starving," right? Just exaggerating. All kids do it. I'm starving. And immediately I'm like, "You don't know nothing about starving. Like, you
Right.
don't really know what it's like to starve."
Right.
Like, there are kids on the other side of the world
That
that really live like that. So we're big on the principles and the values, and also just personal development
Right.
principles. I know the other day you mentioned to one of our kids to be mindful of his words,
Yeah.
because his words has power. And he was just saying like negative things, and Keia just stressed the importance of speaking highly of himself. So that's another thing that comes to mind, just the values, the principles, and
Absolutely.
all of that.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah. So let's just say for the average person, maybe they're about to go into tax season. They may get a little bit of a refund. Let's say they have a surplus of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, right? What would you recommend for that person who's like, look, here I am. It's tax season. I have a refund, but I don't really know what to do with this money. I know that I probably should be saving it or investing it or whatever the case may be, or putting in the policy or creating a will or whatever the case. And if someone is in that space where now they have a little bit of a surplus, what would you recommend? Or what approach? We don't give investment advice, but
Right.
what would you recommend in terms of giving like the best guidance for them with that extra surplus of money in this season?
Yeah. Usually I like to look at the overall picture of someone's finances before I just suggest something. But one thing that could be beneficial for them is they can put that in a life insurance policy, right? So they can put that money in there before they use it instead of saving it in a bank account. Because when you save money in a bank account, when that money grows, you pay taxes on that growth. So if you put it in a life insurance policy instead, you can grow it without paying taxes on it. So, I mean, the math has to math, right? And so, you can be able to keep that interest that you would have given to taxes working for you in your life insurance policy. So that's one thing I would definitely recommend. Obviously, it would depend on each person's unique situation, right? Like as a whole. However, that would be a great place to start, and that's just foundational. Another thing is I do have a financial boot camp starting tomorrow. So if you want to, let's say you're getting that tax refund, you want to know exactly what to do, you want to raise your financial IQ, I would recommend attending the boot camp because you can understand different principles and different financial knowledge and information that's going to allow you to raise your financial IQ in January, which is good because you can plan out your entire year, your next year, your future generations. It's just foundational, creating a solid um, foundation for you and your family. So those are two things I would recommend if you know you're getting a tax refund, if you know you're an entrepreneur and you're gonna pay taxes as well. So I would recommend getting that information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Someone asked what type of life insurance policy?
So permanent life insurance policy, whole life insurance. So that's what creates cash values that can create cash flow as well. And so that's where you want term. I'm not going to get into the debate right now about term and whole. Both are beneficial depending on what your financial goals are and what you want to do. So it's not even a debate. It's just a matter of function and it's a matter of what you want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I know there's a lot of debate around term and whole
Yeah.
life. And one thing that I can tell you is for us, we're just big on following our approach is going to be very different because we're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So for people who fall in the category of working, let's say a traditional 9 to 5, 40-year plan, retirement, that kind of thing, you may hear a lot of advice around 401ks or
Right.
creating a term life. Whereas for us, we're hearing advice from people who are building long-term
Right.
generational wealth, and they're taking the complete opposite advice or giving the complete opposite advice. So for us specifically, we take the approach of the whole life just
Right.
because of our situation and the way we go about our wealth.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's been the best financial vehicle. And for those of you who have wanted to set up policies and everything, I would recommend jumping on a call with Keia.
Mhm.
She can give you the best guidance or the best approach on the best policy for your situation. And I mean, you've helped tons of people
Yeah.
just get set up with their policies. So I would recommend DM. Yeah, what's the best way for them to reach you if they want some
You
information on
can
that?
private message me, whether on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all platforms pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, absolutely. So just send her the DM. You could probably just DM the word info, and she'll just
Yeah.
set up a call with you to let you know what's the best situation.
Mhm.
Now or the best way to go about the insurance process.
Right.
So with your financial boot camp that you're launching tomorrow,
Mhm.
what would you say are what's the biggest reason for someone to even participate in that process? Like I know for a lot of people, again,
Mhm.
their New Year resolutions, I would say number one is probably weight loss.
Yeah.
So number one, typically for people is weight loss. They want to shed some pounds or get their health back in order. And then I would say number two is probably centered around money,
Right.
something regarding just getting their money situation together. So
Right.
we want to support our community when it comes to just getting your financial household in order.
Mhm.
And I know that there are a lot of people out there that perhaps don't have the will in place. Perhaps they don't have the policies in place or the insurance in place or even a peace of mind fund in
Mhm.
place or security fund in place, all of these different things. Maybe you've wanted to even get into multiple streams of income, but you don't even know how to invest or
Right.
anything like that, right?
Mhm.
And if that's the case for you, then obviously going through a program that can give you that financial education is going to be essential.
Absolutely.
What would you say people are going to be able to take away once once they complete the program and they actually engage and interact and all of that stuff?
Yeah. You will definitely have a lot more knowledge around finances in all of the different categories. You will have a plan moving forward, a blueprint that is going to put you on the path to whatever it is that you want to accomplish in your life. Because the biggest thing is after you learn the knowledge is the action,
Mm,
So if you have a blueprint you can follow, if you know where your financial holes are, you can plug those. If you know where your blocks are, you can, erase those blocks that you may have to create wealth and accelerate your wealth. So it's just a great way to have a foundation that you could build your financial empire on. And if your foundation is not strong, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care, you could have money coming out of all places, but at the end of the day, you will lose it just as fast as you get it if you don't have the financial IQ, the literacy behind it, and also that foundation. So you need something whereas you know what you're doing. not just today, but in the future. And you could always expand on that foundation, but that's where it starts.
Definitely. What would you say is the number one book you would recommend on building wealth, and why?
That is a good one. Number one book. Well, it depends because it depends on which area, but I guess I'll go back to like Richest Man in Babylon, like because it's foundational,
Yeah.
foundational principles. And so it's a great book just to understand those principles, and it's a great read as well,
Yeah.
which I absolutely love. So if you're the person that you don't like financial jargon and it's boring, you fall asleep, all of that stuff is just a great entertaining way to get some of those principles.
Yeah, I
I would say
definitely
that.
agree. Yeah, because sometimes too, like it can be overwhelming hearing all of this sophisticated jargon around money. I think even I feel like it's kind of like intentionally set up that way
Yeah.
because you feel like you have to be reliant on the quote unquote experts.
Yeah.
But these principles, they're not as complicated as they sound. So you guys may feel like it's so overwhelming and you're like, geez, I have to set up this and do that and do that. And it's a few fundamental principles. I know for me, if I had to give a one-page manifesto around getting your financial foundation solidified, I would say peace of mind fund, which is essentially most of you probably know of it as an emergency
I call
fund.
it a security fund.
Keia calls it a security fund.
Definitely.
So having that in place, and really that's just a few months worth of savings.
Yeah.
So that God forbid anything happens, you have that cash in place that can ultimately sustain you in the event that you lost your main source of income.
Right.
The second thing that comes to mind for me is credit. So preserving your
Yes.
credit as much as
Definitely.
possible. And one of the best ways you can go about credit, always keep your credit utilization to your overall balance on your credit cards under 30%.
Right.
The lower the better, but always under 30%. That's going to help. Be on time with your credit cards. Don't be so nonchalant about not taking a look. Set up automatic payments if you can. That way you don't fall into the trap of having late payments, because that also affects your credit as well.
Yeah.
And you also, if you don't have any credit, and you may want to open up a line of credit so that you could actually build your credit in the first place. So that also affects some people. They think like, oh, well, I don't want to open up any credit cards.
Right.
And not realizing that if you want to get a home, you want to finance a vehicle, in many cases, if you want to get an apartment even, or finance anything, you're going to need some degree of credit.
Yeah.
So credit is power. Credit, especially for those of you who are entrepreneurs, credit can be a really great thing.
Yeah.
But you have to have the mindset, because you could also sabotage your wealth.
Absolutely.
And one of the fastest ways to sabotage your wealth is through your credit. What would you say in terms of like mindset when it comes to credit and having that discipline around wealth? Because I think people don't realize that the greatest threat to your wealth is always going to be you. It's always going to be yourself. What would you say with regard to that is something important to understand about just the nature of having the right mindset when it comes to wealth?
Yeah. You always want to eliminate as much interest you're paying on anything. And the thing about credit cards is it's high interest debt and revolving debt. So I think for some people, if they just did the math, it would scare them straight.
Yeah.
Some people, they just need to see the numbers. Like you may be avoiding it. You may not be doing the math on the amount of interest that you're giving up, or I should say the amount of wealth that you're actually giving up. And you should definitely do the math on that. So with the mindset that you need to have is that you use it, you get the benefits, whereas whether it's the miles, the cash back, and all of that stuff, however, you don't allow yourself to pay interest every month if you can help it. I do know there are situations where you may have to just make those minimum payments, but there's a right way and a wrong way to go about that, depending on your circumstances. You know, like there's a lot of information about how you pay down debt and all of that stuff. Like I used my policy to pay down my debt when I had debt. So, I mean, you can do it the traditional way or you can do it the unconventional way. And I'm not going to get into all of the details. Whereas you can save yourself a lot more on the interest and recapture all of those interest payments you're paying to your credit card. So that's one way. There's also different ways depending if your goal is cash flow,
Mm,
depending on if your goal is saving the most interest. Like there are different methods depending on which one of those is more beneficial to your situation. So it's good to know all of them, but it's good to know what applies to you and your unique
yeah.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Sometimes you get advice from, like, let's say a Dave Ramsey to cut up your credit cards because it's not that credit cards are this evil thing, right? But the reason why he mentions that is because his audience is pretty much the general public.
Right.
So the 98% of the population who don't have the control, the emotional control.
Right.
So they may be impulsive spenders or they may engage in a lot of retail therapy.
Yeah.
So when it comes to building wealth, understand that your mindset is absolutely going to be important. And if you don't have the control, the emotional fortitude to be able to have that self-discipline
Mhm.
on not being an impulsive shopper or spender or anything like that, then yeah, you may
Right.
very well
Need
need
to
to
cut
cut that
things
up.
up. Yeah.
You
For sure.
because once you cut it up, it's like, and then take it off your phone because some of y'all probably cut it up, but you low key got it saved on your phone with your Apple
Apple
Watch.
Pay.
Yeah. So make sure that you get the financial discipline necessary when even getting a line of credit because you could very well just end up sabotage. You're not ready for that.
Right.
Now, another thing, what's
Sorry.
that?
I'd just like to add that if you're going to use credit for whatever reason, you need to have a plan behind why you're using it, what
Yeah.
you're using it for.
Hmm.
So planning ahead is important as well.
Yeah, most definitely. So when it comes to peace of mind fund, I know there's a lot of different approaches. I typically with this specifically, so what you guys may know of as an emergency fund or rainy day fund, security
Like your
fund, whatever it is, I always recommend anywhere from it could be 2 months to a year, depending on your situation.
Right.
So if you're a young man, 19, 20 years old, you may be able to get away with 2 months
Yeah.
worth of emergency fund and or security fund. And essentially what it is your fixed expenses. How much money do you need to survive? Your basic necessities, those fixed expenses, not variable expenses. There's a huge difference
Yeah.
because with fixed expenses, it's let's just say you have to pay your rent or you
Essentials.
have to pay for some food. These are essentials,
Right.
right? That you have to pay. But there are also those variable expenses, which are those luxuries. It
Yeah.
may be going out to the restaurant. It
Mhm.
may be getting your nails done or your hair done. And you know that you could probably save a little bit more when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's not about the amount of money that you're making that's the issue. It's just the amount of money that you're keeping.
Yeah.
You're not keeping enough of your money.
And enough of it. You're not keeping enough and you're not keeping enough working for you.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
And I also believe that you also can't always save yourself out of a situation.
No.
Meaning that for some of you, you're like, well, damn, I'm already saving this. I already done cut back on all of
Right.
these subscriptions that I don't need.
Mhm.
I've already cut back on how much food I'm consuming. And in that case, you may very well just need another stream of income.
Yeah.
You may need another job. You may need a side hustle, something like that. But in terms of setting up the peace of mind fund, understand this, that for those of you who are probably like, well, Josh, Keia, I have an extra 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, and I want to invest it.
Mhm.
You don't have the luxury of investing that money if you don't have that security fund in place.
Right.
So make sure that you have the security fund in place first before putting any of that money or that reserve money into any kind of investment.
Mhm.
And that's a huge part of the process because with investments, the very nature of investing is it's risky. I mean, depending
Depending
on
on the
But it's still a risk.
but you can minimize the
You can
risk.
minimize the risk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day, there's no guarantee.
Right.
Right. Even if you have your money in savings, it's being eroded by inflation and
Exactly. Yeah, people think that oh, if they invest in something like and it goes south, but what we're not thinking about is like inflation. Inflation is a stealthy thief.
yeah.
Like the taxes you see, the fees you see, inflation you don't see, but it's there.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So for the security fund, for those of you with children, you may want a few more months, let's say,
Yeah.
than 2 months, or depending on the nature of your career, you may have one of those careers that is super rare. And in the event that you get laid off, you may have to move to another city
Yeah.
in order to basically get another position in that industry.
Yeah.
So you may need more than 2 months to figure your situation
Yeah.
out.
Absolutely.
I would say calculate your fixed expenses, those expenses that you absolutely have to pay every month. Then also take into account how many months would you need in order to get back to a full-time income.
Mhm.
And that you can kind of gauge it. Or if you have children, you may want to take them into account. If your kids are in private school,
Yeah.
you may very well have to take into account being able to pay for their education. Maybe
Yeah.
you have an expensive mortgage and you have to figure out your mortgage situation. So if you're with children, a lot of dependence on you, if you have very high living overhead, you may need as much as 6 to 12 months worth of that peace of mind fund or
Absolutely.
before you start the investing process.
Yep. Yep. Because it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
Most
So
definitely.
it's good to have it and, not to have your security fund in your investments.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And during this season, I would also really recommend and encourage you guys to get right with Uncle Sam.
Mhm.
Uncle Sam is going to come for that paper one way or another. I know
For
some of
sure.
you probably think that you may be finessing the system. Uncle Sam will come for that paper. Get right with Uncle Sam during this season. Don't push it off for another year. Don't file even for an extension. If you can do it now, get it over with. Reach out to your tax professional and get it over with, because for some of you, this has been a huge pain point and it's like a splinter in your mind. You know that you have to get those taxes in order,
Right.
but you're prolonging it. You're getting the extension, convincing yourself that, oh, I'll just do it in a couple of months. And then you
Right.
actually never end up doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to set up a payment plan with the IRS, and that's okay. Get yourself on a payment plan, and it may seem overwhelming, but the satisfaction of at least being legit, at least being in a space where you're actively working on your situation and making it better.
Yeah, I'll just say, for those of you who, let's say you have the money, but you have to get your taxes in order, put it in a policy first, because then you have a different you have a different mindset on it, because at least you know that even though you're paying your taxes, the money is still in there working for you. So even though you're using it, and in the boot camp, I go through all of this, like more of the advanced strategies and stuff like that. But definitely get it in there first so that you're not just giving it away in taxes and you no longer earn any money from it, like, ever again.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
just keeping it within your family. We're all going to pay taxes every single year, over our lifetime. Imagine if you can have that money working for you and still pay your taxes and keeping more of it within your family.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just financial sense.
Yeah, and I know for some of you, this may seem a little bit complex, and Keia could very well, like, she can teach you guys exactly what
Yeah.
she's talking about. Because some of you are like, what do you mean by
Right.
just putting it in a policy and using it to essentially take care of
We
your
need
time?
more time to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I won't be able to cover it here on the Breakfast Club. Like, you may need a diagram to understand it and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned paying yourself first. So
Yes.
this is something that we oftentimes talk a lot about, because as a married couple, we go about our finances together.
Mhm.
And some of you may have a different approach. Maybe you want to keep your finances separate. It's not to say one situation or one way of going about it is better than the other.
Right.
You just have to find out what works for you. So
Mhm.
I know what works for us is getting on the same page and working together with our finances on how to go about it. But we also have our individual investments. We have our individual accounts as well as our joint account.
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship, especially for those of you folks who are married, I think having a joint account is definitely essential.
Yeah,
Like
I
just
feel so.
having some kind of joint account where you can combine, but also having that individuality as well.
Mhm.
It for us, we like that approach.
Yes.
Being able to say, hey, this is my money and I can invest in whatever it is that I want.
Yes.
I never have to ask Keia what, like, hey, can I invest in this? Like,
Right.
no, I'll have my side money, and so does Keia. Like,
Mhm.
there's certain investments that she has that are unique to her and what she really likes,
Mhm.
and there are certain things that I like. So,
Right.
for example, I invest a lot more in the stock market,
Yeah.
and I like the liquidity of investing in stocks and being able to take it out within 3 days max.
Mhm.
And for Keia, she likes real estate. And so she has, like, for example, agricultural real estate and different things that she invests in.
Mhm.
So it's okay to be a couple and have different investment
Yep.
philosophies or things like that. And we always have things that we agree on, but also things that we just have our own unique perspectives on.
And which is fine as well.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
mhm.
Exactly. So when it comes to paying yourself first, I think that you really put the bug in my ear and solidified that understanding, I feel, of the
Mhm.
idea of paying yourself first.
Yeah.
And the reason why we promote this is because there's going to be so many things that come for your money, whether it be Uncle Sam, whether it
Mhm.
be interest rates, Uncle Murph, which is
Uncle
Murphy's
Murph.
Law. Uncle Murph is also going to come for that paper. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So, for example, our BMW, it's got a few years on her. So she's in that season of her life where she's been breaking down a lot,
Yeah.
right? And just different issues. Once a car gets to a certain amount of mileage, it starts to have different issues and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So with our BMW, we had Uncle Murph recently come for us,
Mhm.
and it was like $1,300 that we had to spend to basically fix her up. And that's a prime example of sometimes that can erode your wealth, those unexpected variables that come about.
Yeah.
But you have to make sure that you're paying yourself first.
Right. Right.
And paying yourself first can help with Murphy's Law.
Mhm.
It can help for when those things come about and you have something, already stashed away,
Yeah.
as opposed to paying all these bills, all these taxes, all these different things. It's like, hey, let me take a little bit of that and pay myself first. What are your
Yeah.
ideas on that?
Well, for example, like if you're an investor, right? The last thing you want to do is put money in an investment and then have to take it back out. If you can get it back out, because all investments have different time frames, right? So the last thing you want to do is be in a position where you have the money, but you don't have the money. And so that helps to pay yourself first and have a security fund just so you insure yourself against those types of events. I look at paying yourself first as number one, you are the priority because you work hard, blood, sweat, and tears, those long hours, your feet hurt. You have to deal with coworkers you don't like, a boss you can't stand. So it's like you go to work and you go through all of this to make that money and then to not have it if you need it because you didn't put it aside. You spent it on a new bag or whatever it is men spend money on, right? Cars and all of these different things. And so you are number one in priority first in your life. So that's why you should pay yourself first. And then everything else should come second to you. And sometimes you have to be resourceful, sometimes you have to be creative. Because after you pay yourself first, you may be looking at your bills like, but I still have to pay this bill and I still have to pay that bill. Okay, figure out how to make some more money that month so you could cover those bills, but you make sure that you're paid
Yeah,
before anything else.
absolutely.
You work too hard to not pay yourself first. And it is a mind shift. It is a paradigm shift to get to that point. It does not happen overnight. And sometimes you have to remove yourself from the equation and automate things so that, out of sight, out of mind sometimes. Whereas if you're going to set, this is your goal for the year to pay yourself first, Sometimes you have to put measures in place where it takes you out and human error out of the equation to get it done, but you are number one, you are the priority. And wealth creation, where it comes from, is being able to pay yourself first, because it is definitely the wellspring from which everything else grows. So if you can't get that part right, it's going to be difficult to create wealth in your life, because you have nothing to use in order to accelerate that
Yeah,
wealth, right?
definitely.
So that,
Definitely. So I'll just share the way that I personally go about paying myself first and what that actually means. So some of you may tithe, for example, and you give your very first to whatever charity or organization that you give to, right? And the idea of, again, that money being the first that you give out. That's the idea of tithing, but
right,
it's a similar concept, but to yourself.
right,
So you may take 10% of all that you make and say, hey, I'm going to put this towards my security fund.
right,
I'm going to put this towards even investing. So what I do is I put it in a separate account that is not so liquid. I may need to wait 3 days before I can take it out. And the reason why I go about it in that way, because what I find with myself, and everybody's different,
Mhm.
but what I find myself doing over the years is, if I have it easily accessible,
Mhm.
then I use it.
right,
So you may pay, let's say you make $2,000 and you say, okay, I'm going to pay myself 10%, and I'm going to take this $200 and put it in my savings.
Mhm.
But then you have, let's just say, a vacation,
right,
and and you're like, well, I got this little extra change right here that I've been paying myself, and I could easily just take. Or maybe you see some nice shoes,
right,
and you're like, I have this $700, and
right, right,
and you don't have the self-control to be able to say, like, no, I'm not touching that. So for me, I put it in a separate account.
Mhm.
That way I know, even if someone comes to me asking for money, I'm like, hey, I make sure it's not so liquid.
right,
It's not so accessible.
Mhm.
I let them know, even if I do lend you this money, I have to wait a couple days just to even transfer it to this account.
Yep.
That has worked for me.
Yeah.
And you can find your own approach if you don't have the self-control, which most people don't, of
Mhm.
seeing the money there and
Yeah.
then move it to another account
Right.
or put it in the policy. Is you
Right. I was
that's
just about
that's
to
your
say.
approach,
Yep.
is the policy.
Mhm.
I like to even invest my money. So I love the stock market, and it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's most certainly been a great investment vehicle for me.
Mhm.
And many times, if I see a stock that's on sale, I'll invest it and put it in a stock, especially if the peace of mind fund or the security fund is solidified.
Mhm.
Then you have the luxury of having a little fun
Right.
of what you do with your money and
Yeah.
investing it.
Mhm.
So, or you may just want to, let's say, invest in a seminar in your own personal education,
Yes.
and you can take that money that you've been paying yourself with and put it towards that.
Yeah.
But the idea, more than anything, is something is going to grab your money.
Yeah.
If it's easily accessible, something's going to grab it.
Absolutely.
It may be that restaurant, it may be
Mhm.
that turn up. So don't let all of your money just linger there in your savings, because everybody's trying to grab for those dollars. It's
Mhm.
wallet share. So if you see in your account that there's not really much money there, then you're less likely to touch the money.
Yeah.
So that's the mindset behind paying yourself first
Absolutely.
and not touching that.
Yeah.
You're gonna say something?
Yeah. I was just about to say, I put it in my policy so I can automate it monthly. So you can do that. And what it allows, because it's a separate account from your bank account, it's like you have to log in order to check it, right? So when you're logging into your bank account, you're seeing what you have. What you have that you don't really have is in a separate account. So it's important just to understand that it's just human nature. If you can see it, if you're like, okay, I'm going to just keep all my money together in this account, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to create this Excel spreadsheet that's going to say, oh, what is my savings and stuff? That you're setting yourself up, because you will even forget, okay, how much money was inside here for
Yeah.
myself again? Like how much? And since it's for myself, shouldn't I be buying those shoes?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you definitely want to separate what you're paying yourself first for versus what you're going to use as your living or your spending money, your expense money. It's good to have that separation. When I go into a store, and we have online shopping and stuff now too, but when I go into a store and I see something that I like and I look at my account, whatever's in my account and I'm planning for the week, that's what I'm sticking to. I'm not thinking about what's in my policy, because by the time I transfer that money out there, which is like 3 business days, I'm not even thinking about that bag or that shoe anymore, right? So the money that's in there, now I'm planning in my head, okay, this is what I have for the week, so this is what I'm using. Oh, I don't have enough for that bag. Oh, well, that bag is just gonna see me next month or the month after. But I find that because I have those boundaries on myself, then it eliminates even that thought of, oh, I have to go and get the money for my policy, which I'm saving for myself, and purchase this bag. This bag ain't worth it. This bag ain't making me no money, So it's just this thought process. And then I just rest the bag down and I walk to another aisle or walk out the store. By the time I walk out that store or close that browser window for, all of these fashion sites that I go on, I'm walking out with nothing. But it's not nothing because I still have my money that I'm going to use for what I actually need to use it for. So it definitely helps. I see you over there laughing.
Out of sight, out of mind. And even with family that you're going to have family, friends that reach out to you for money. And I'm telling you, this is one of the greatest money hacks of all time. Just do not leave your money so accessible, because you could very well, even if you give, let's just say someone's like, hey, can I borrow an extra $300? And you say, hey, I don't have it in my account. I'd have to sell my stock or transfer it from my policy or something like that. And people are understanding. It's like, well, geez, I don't have the ability to wait 3 or 4 days to be able to, so they're probably going to go to someone else to borrow that money. So this can be one of the best things, because one of the great eroders of wealth as well is constantly lending money to people.
Yes. And especially if you don't, I think it's noble. I think it's good to lend money to people because, people are in different situations. They may need the money, it could be friends and family. You definitely want to help out. So I think it's good to help out. I do think that you do have to have a boundary though, because some people, they help so much that they put their own family in jeopardy. That should never be the case. If you're going to help someone and it puts your family at risk, that's a no. But the other side of that too is if you're going to lend money out and you expect to get it back, it's good that they pay some type of interest. Number one, because obviously inflation, we're talking about wealth, it can be a win-win where you help your friend or family. And some people may say, oh no, if I'm just gonna, just help them just to help them and get the same money back. Yeah, but at the same time, that is your money. It is opportunity cost. And if it's somewhere else, that means it's not working for you in that way. So you also have to put on that hat sometimes as well. You want to help your friend, but you may want to tack on some interest. And then number two, it will deter a lot of people from asking you for money as well, because they know they're going to have to pay some interest. And it doesn't mean that it has to be like crazy amount of interest. You know what I mean? But you do have to take into account that the money that you make now, you want to always keep it working for you. And so it depends on how you want to look at it. It may be like a charity. Some people, they give money and they don't expect it back at all. Even though they said, they'll pay you back and stuff like that. So I do think that when you lend it, it's with what intention? Do you intend on getting it back, or are you looking at it more as just charity? Or your tithe, and Josh does that, where he looks at it as, okay, well, that's I tithe this month or whatever the case may be. So it's really about your intention. It's no right or wrong way. It's just about how you look at it.
Most definitely. So these days, what I do is, because I'm adamant about tithing, I'll leave a little bit of my tithes to just, if someone comes to me, rather than lending them money or tacking interest or whatever, I'll just have a budget for just giving the money and not expecting it. If they want to pay me back, by all means, pay me back, and I'll end up donating the money anyway to something. So that's the beautiful thing for those of you who are givers, right? Because you're probably thinking like, man, I'm so, this seems so cold, right? It seems so harsh to add, to tax someone for letting you don't have to add.
Depends on the amount, though.
I can't tell you the last time I've ever added interest on anyone that I've lent. Like, I just don't,
Right.
I don't do that, right? But if you want to go about it in that way, you can. For me, it's more so if someone asks for money or to borrow, especially if it's a small amount,
Right. Right.
I'll just give with no expectation of receiving it back in return. It's
Right.
like,
Mhm.
and if they never pay me back, hey, I was a blessing to someone that was in need. And what this will do is you don't allow that situation to rob you of your personal power.
Right.
Because
Right.
some of you are getting frustrated when people are borrowing money from you and they're not paying you back, and you're giving away your power
Yeah.
in a sense. It's like you're getting,
It's on your mind.
yeah, it's on your mind. It's
Occupy
good.
your mental space.
Yeah, like just let it go. That $50, that $100, that $200, bless and
I
release it.
agree.
Look at
100%.
it as, hey, I gave back to someone who is in need,
Right.
and it is what it is. I'm not
Now,
gonna let this frustrate me or consume me or anything like that.
right. No, I 1,000% agree. Now, if it's like thousands of dollars,
Oh
that's a
yeah,
different
yeah,
story. Okay. So, like I said, it's no right or wrong way. It's just a matter of what your intention is for that money. So, if it's to just give it away in tithe, great. If it's to, if you're using it to build it up for an investment, but now you took it out, you are losing interest as well, especially if it's like a large sum of money you're lending out. So, it depends.
yeah, yeah. I remember I had a business partner screw me over for like 8 grand,
Mhm.
and I lost 8 grand one time. And for some of you, it's like that's chump change, right? But for others, that's a lot of money.
Right. For sure.
And this was years and years ago. But I look at it today, and I've just, bless and release. I helped someone when they were really, really down and out. I mean, and this was someone who was kind of close to me at
Yeah.
that time,
Mhm.
and I just was like, well, it is what it is. Bless and released it. I helped them when they were in need,
Yeah.
and it is what it is. And I move on. I'm not going to allow that situation, like, have that resentment and that bitterness and everything like that. So
Absolutely.
now, when it comes to just mindset, I know we're going to start to bring this in for a landing. Um, when it comes to just even more on mindset, because a lot of you, this technical stuff and all of that stuff, you guys can get all of that in Kia's program.
Yeah.
For those of you who participate in it,
Mhm.
but to elaborate a little bit more on the psychology, because I know for some people they're conflicted when it comes to the idea of money. They feel like money is the root of all evil, or money doesn't grow on trees, or all rich people are evil people, or they're greedy people.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best perspective for building wealth? Because for a lot of people, they self-sabotage their wealth because of their limiting beliefs around money.
It's true, it's true. And I do go through in our first week, we do cover a little bit of mindset and stuff like that as well, because we want to set that foundation first and foremost. But the reason why people sabotage themselves a lot of the time is because of those, like you say, limiting beliefs. But a lot of the times, those beliefs are not built on truth at all, like actual truth. And so, but it's true for them, right? So who's to say? So it dep how you look at money, and, like, if you understood what money actually is, because the value is not in the paper, it's not in this paper that we print. That's not what it is. What money is really that stored up energy that, our blood, sweat, and tears, the best that we give to the world, our gifts, our talents, our skills. That's where the true value is, right? Because we give those in service to others, and that's how we make money. So when you look at it as the more I give, the more value I give to the world, the more I enhance my skills, the more I do good in the world, the more money I make. When you look at it like that, instead of all rich people are evil and all of these things, and the love of money is the root of all evil, and all of that, you have a different perspective on what it actually is. And so it's not the value's not in the paper. The value is in what we give, our energy, the best of ourselves,
Our service.
our service to others. That's what it really comes down to. So sometimes you just need a change in that perspective in order to remove some of those blocks you have about money. Because I can tell you that when you think about the wealthiest people in the world, no matter how you feel about them, no matter if you feel like they've done wrong or whatever the case may be, what the movies teach us, the
Yeah.
bad guy is always the rich guy, right? That's the one who always scheme.
Yeah.
And while yes, you do have some of that, right? I won't say that we don't. I do believe that we have a lot of good as well. And some of their intentions may not have necessarily been to help society, but through their inventions and what they gave to the world, it still impacted the world in a positive way, So, and that's why they make the money. It's not because it's like some rocket science. It's really that they impacted the world in like such a positive way, and more of the world, that they were able to increase their wealth. That's really what it comes down to. So when you hear about like the love of money and all of these things, and money doesn't grow on trees and all of that, you have to replace those beliefs with what actual truth is. And so you have to figure out what that truth is for you. And what Josh always says, it's what serves you. What's the best mindset or perspective to have that's going to allow you to thrive financially or in your health or whatever the case may be. So those limiting beliefs, you really have to ask, like, is this true? Is it really true? Does it make sense? Because when you look at someone else thriving and you're not, you have to figure out what's different. It's really about your beliefs, the way you look at things, because that is what affects your behavior of what you're going to do. And when you have the right perspective, you're going to have the right behaviors and take the right action, and you're going to get the right results. So
Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
definitely. And the last thing that I'll say in terms of just mindset is also being mindful of your language. So, for example, a lot of people, when they talk about wealth or wealthy people, they refer to those people as a people that is outside of them.
Right.
They don't identify as a wealthy person. So, prime example, if you're talking about wealthy people, you'll say those rich people or wealthy people as if that's outside of yourself.
Right.
And how are you going to attract wealth if when every time you refer to wealthy people, it's those people? You're not going to attract abundance if you don't identify as a wealthy person. So one of the best things that you can do on your path to wealth is changing your language and the way you refer to wealthy people. Say us rich people, us wealthy people, not those rich people or I remember when I was younger or just even growing up in the hood, it was like, yeah, rich people, like they were this exclusive sect of people that were like evil and outside. And how are you ever going to attract wealth with that kind of mindset or languaging? So it's essential that when you refer to rich people, like, yeah, that's us, that's me as well. You're included in this rich family, in this
Right.
wealthy family. It's
Absolutely.
not outside of you, it's inside of you, because wealth is not about the money you have in your bank account.
Right.
My personal, and I'll have you share your definition of wealth. My personal definition of wealth is how adequately equipped you are for survival. So that can be your social capital or relationship capital. That can be your knowledge around money. That can be the resources you have available to you. That can be having your policies and different things, the multiple streams of income, all of these different things in place. It could be your family. It can be your health. A lot of things can be basically your wealth, or considered to be a part of your wealth, right? Because what's $1 billion to a cancer patient?
Right.
So what's $1 billion to someone who's massively obese?
Right.
So you have to redefine also the way you define wealth. That's a big part of the process. And what would you say is your definition of
My
wealth?
definition is the transcendence of survival. And so, when you transcend survival, you're in an environment where you thrive. And that could be financially, that could be health wise, that can be, with relationships and community and all of that. But it's where you transcend that survival point where you're no longer feeling like I don't have enough, or, everything is scarce or not abundant enough. And it really is a mindset more than anything, because before I was even wealthy in terms of financial gain, I was saying that I'm wealthy, and I've always been blessed and highly favored. And I thank my parents and definitely my mom for instilling that in me, because you couldn't tell me I didn't have it all from before I had it all. You know what I mean? Like, even as a child, like, I knew I was wealthy, I knew I was blessed, I knew I had favor, I knew all of these things. And so, my mom spoke life into me at a very young age.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I don't feel lack in certain ways, because I've always felt so blessed in so many ways.
Yeah.
But that comes down to my belief. And, it's so much more to wealth than just financial gain.
Yeah.
It's really about like your belief system, your community, like all of these things encompass your wealth, like Josh said. And so when you think about all those things, you may not have it in your bank account, but honey, you have 5 good, good, good friends. Like, I have my good, good sister here on the line. You know what I mean? And so I feel blessed just naturally when I wake up. I have an amazing husband. Like, this man puts up with a lot. Okay, y'all don't know. We're not talking about that today, but like, my kids, like, it's so much to be grateful for. It's so much
Yeah.
gratitude that I have. I cannot help but feel blessed,
Yeah.
Even when I think about it, I just feel like so blessed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really the transcendence of survival, where you're not feeling like you lack anything.
Yeah.
You may not have it in your bank account, but you still could get up every morning and say, I still got it. Like,
Yeah.
I still have it, because what my father has is also mine.
Yeah.
And I ain't about to preach this morning, all right? But that's just like how I feel every day when I wake up.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And I know Kia's going to get ready to homeschool our
Yes.
boys. So the last thing that I'll share, and it's kind of appropriate for this time too, because you're about to go, for example, homeschool our boys. So
Yeah.
we homeschool our kids, and part of that, the reasoning for that is wealth,
Mhm.
right? So we realized a long time ago that we didn't want our kids to necessarily subscribe to just what's being pushed out there in the world, and sometimes people don't raise their children the same. And not to say that schools aren't good, right? Because there are some good, and we live in the number one school district in our city. So in terms of, like, an actual physical location for a children's schooling, that may very well be a good thing. But
Right.
homeschooling is a big part of that. And family, the idea of family, if you look at the way a lot of traditional Jews go about their wealth, the very foundation of their wealth is centered around God and family.
Yeah.
So your family is your wealth. And you have to be mindful of that. Your outer world is going to be a direct reflection of your inner world. So yes, the numbers are great. Like when Keia talks about just always feeling blessed and highly favored, and she didn't grow up in a mansion. She didn't grow up with millions of dollars in the bank account or anything like that. But at the same time, your wealth was in your family.
Yeah.
Your wealth was in the safety that you had and all of that. So understand that when it comes to wealth, don't feel as if you have to have a certain amount in the bank in
Right.
order to feel wealthy. The feeling is what's most important.
Yeah.
So that's why gratitude is so important, because gratitude puts you in that state of feeling abundant,
Yeah.
of feeling wealthy, because you have so many different things, whether it be beautiful, healthy children, or good health, or just an amazing tribe of people that you
Yes.
can count on. That's
Yep.
where the wealth lies.
Mhm.
So as Keia, gets ready to go off, and do the homeschooling thing, I wanted you to just share if there was a one-page manifesto that you can share with everybody on building wealth. What would you share if there was just a few fundamentals in 2 minutes, basically what they can do right now for this year to get their financial household solidified and start this generational wealth process?
Yeah. So number one would definitely be gratitude, because that's like foundational for what you have. Because like Josh said, you have to feel wealthy. Number two would be putting that financial foundation in place, because life is a journey. We don't all arrive at a certain place like today, even like going to work. You don't just arrive to work. You don't snap your fingers and you're at work. You drive there or you drive to your business or whatever the case may be. It's the same thing with wealth building. If you look at it as a journey, you're starting your foundation, or maybe you have a foundation, but you want to strengthen that foundation. And that's what you're going to build your house on. Understand that it is a journey, but you can find peace, or you can find, um, I guess, peace knowing that you have that foundation set and you're on your way. Like every year, you have an opportunity to build upon that foundation. Because I find that a lot of people don't feel wealthy because they feel like they're not making progress, right? But that's because they're looking at progress as a dollar amount.
Yeah.
So you have to realize, if you have those things foundationally in place, that is progress, because there are a lot of people that are missing things in their foundation. So even if you don't have like everything all at once, just understand that takes time to build. But what you need to build first is always your foundation, right? And then generational wealth, planning for the future, thinking about the things that you want to implement to, I don't want to say make life easier for your generation, but in a sense, yes, because I do believe we should be the giants and our children should stand on our shoulders from all aspects. And when I say all aspects, I mean the information and the knowledge as well. So the knowledge that you have is very important, because if you can pass that knowledge on to future generations, they will see far beyond where you could see right now. And so if you can give them that foundational knowledge, they have something to build upon even faster and even sooner than you do. And so when I think about it, it's gratitude, it's financial literacy, like raising your financial IQ, and it's also planning for the future. These are things that you have to do if you want to create wealth. And a great way to do that is to build or strengthen your financial foundation.
Absolutely. So, as you get ready to leave, I just wanted to mention once again that Kia does have a financial program in place that she's spearheading tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is going to kind of get in motion. So, reach out to her, send her.
I,
What's that?
yeah. No, I someone asked for the details. So I will be putting the link in the Facebook group. All of the details will be there. It is a 10-week live boot camp. So you'll be seeing me every Wednesday starting tomorrow. Over the next 10 weeks, we're going to discuss various financial topics and how you can make sure that you are right in those areas. And so that's what we're going to be discussing. But it's a place where you not only get information, but you can also take action immediately. And these things are things you can start putting in place today, or at least this year at the latest. But definitely having a plan of how you're going to do that and looking at your situation. But, so it's 10 weeks live, starts at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. I am doing a special for the Breakfast Club. So you guys are getting a huge discount. And so for those 10 weeks, I am doing $500. That is my biggest discount for the Breakfast Club over 10 weeks. So that's like $50 a session, right? When you really think about it. Like, is your financial, building your financial and building your wealth, is it worth that for you? Like this does not include a 1 hour session with me, because I already have people that already registered. And so if you want to be in if you want to get that one-on-one session with me included, then you will just pay the $649, and that includes a one-on-one session with me to discuss your overall finances as well. But Josh asked me to make it, as affordable as I possibly can for the Breakfast Club community. And that is what I'm doing, right? So we start tomorrow. Gonna come. We have a workbook, everything that you're going to be able to write your notes down, put yourself on a plan, get that blueprint in order so you have a way forward for 2024 and beyond. So if that's
Absolutely.
worth it to you, then I will see you in class. I will see you in class tomorrow evening.
Yeah, definitely. And I know for those of you who are like waiting for your income tax and all of that stuff, just reach out to Keia. Like it's not about necessarily, making a quick buck. Like
Right.
that's nothing compared to what she typically charges.
Mhm.
Is really to have that accountability, like that seriousness coming into the program. I know a lot of people, if they don't invest money into something, they don't take it serious. So we want people to take their education serious, to take their financial household seriously, because it is a serious thing. This is a
Right.
huge pain point for so many people. So to pay $500 or whatever it is definitely affordable. And if you need a little bit more time to get your finances together, just reach out anyway.
Yeah.
She'll set it up for you, even if it's a payment plan.
Mhm.
Because the idea is really to just help you guys get this under control. For a lot of people, it's a huge pain point every single year, and it's something that causes your average family a lot of suffering, your average individual a lot of suffering. So to be able to just kickstart the year and on the right track, that way by the time you're going into 2025,
Right.
you have the will in place, you have the policies in place, you have everything set up for your next generation and all these different things, your peace of mind fund. Maybe you want to have multiple streams of income, whatever it is. So I think this is definitely just a great time to just take action on this. And for those of you who've been really praying for a financial blessing, and you're going to have to at some point in time invest in your financial education, just like everything else that you want to improve. You want to improve your health, guess what? You're going to have to invest in it. You want to improve your brand, you're going to have to invest in your brand. If you want just about anything, these days you have to invest in yourself. And the greatest investment you'll ever make is in yourself. So
Absolutely.
thanks a lot, babe. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Yeah, really
Thanks
great
for
job.
having me. It was wonderful spending this morning with you guys. Now I'm off to homeschool.
Absolutely. So I'll wrap up for you all. Once again, you can reach out to Keia and just write the words info in her DM. You could just look her up, Keia Valentin. Keia is how you spell her first name. And I'll just mention as well that with regard to just wealth building. The last thing that I wanted to share as I close out is just my own views on wealth specifically. I know I touched a little bit on it, but I just wanted to share with you guys a little bit about how I personally have gone about my wealth over the years. As many of you know, maybe you're listening to me for the very first time and you're like, well, this guy comes from a silver spoon or whatever. I'll just mention this. I don't come from any money. Like my parents, I was I never received a dime in college. Like, no shade on my parents whatsoever. They did the best that they could, with where they were. But my parents didn't even have a high school diploma, and I was the first person in my family to kind of go off to college and do that thing. And I went off to go and make six figures and start building my credit. But one of the things that I was very adamant about, number one, I always knew that I should take care of my credit. For whatever reason, I had this understanding that I had to safeguard my credit. And I know for those of you who are like me and you grew up in the hood, maybe like you put the cable bill on your child's name. Like that's like a common thing, in case you guys don't know that. Like if you go to the hood, it's very common for back in those, I don't even know if you can still do that, but back in those days, you can just kind of put a cable bill or a certain bill on your children's name. And a lot of children will start off with really bad credit, as sad as that may sound, but that's just the reality. But I remember being very adamant and specific to my mom, do not put my name on anything. I had a lot of siblings. It's just like, this sibling, this child in this household will not have anything on their name. And thank God that I started my journey like that. And I remember I started out with a Macy's credit card. And I think I probably had like a $300 limit on it. Just a little old Macy's credit card. And that's how I started my journey. And from the Macy's credit card, I remember upgrading as I bought something and I'd pay it off, buy something, pay it off. I never like maxed it out or anything like that. And I started to build my credit from there. And then by the time I graduated from college, I had A1 credit. My credit was like flawless. And that kind of started the process. And then when I graduated from college, one of the things that I was very big on was also saving my money. So I saved a lot of money. I built up my peace of mind fund during that time frame, and saved it so much to the point where I still have money that I saved from my college days. Like legit, still to this day, that's my safety net. God forbid anything ever happens, that's what I can count on. And I was working so many different jobs and things like that. I had like 3 jobs in college. And I was so adamant about just saving money and making sure that I had security in my life because it was just me. And then I started making 6 figures. And then from there, I kind of like, started stepping into the big boys league or the big girls, whatever, the big money leagues. And now I was kind of like in the category of like upper middle class, and I upgraded to a black card. And I got my very first vehicle that I had, financed, and that vehicle paid it off pretty much. And along the way, I was just always taking care of the credit and all of these different things. Now, there were a lot of other ways that I went about my wealth, and it's not just the money, it's not just the credit. I always made sure that every single year I was straight with Uncle Sam. And I always made sure that I took advantage of as many things as I could with my taxes. So there are a lot of benefits to having a side hustle, side business, 1099, a lot of tax benefits. And even when I was collecting a W-2, I always had some kind of a side business that had a 1099 where I can get a bunch of tax write-offs when it came to that. So that was another way that I went about the wealth. Now, during this time, I was also reading a lot of books. So you can't say that you want to be wealthy and you're not even reading the books on money. You have to learn about wealth. So Keia mentioned books like Think and Grow Rich and Richest Man in Babylon, which are very foundational. But I also read books like Money Mastered the Game by Tony Robbins and Thou Shalt Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and books like that to kind of solidify my knowledge on that. Now, another thing that I did during this time was learn the stock market. So the stock market isn't for everyone, but for me, I just love, it's just a fun way for me to go about investing. I could buy it and sell it, like it's just so quick to engage, and it's a lot more fun for me. And I never was big into investing in risky investments. I'd invest in companies that I knew very well, industries that I knew very well. So for example, I was a practitioner of Facebook. So I'd invest in Facebook. The day Facebook IPO'd, and the IPO stands for initial public offering. The very first day I invested in Facebook, I bought Facebook when it was like $40. And I typically would buy and I'd hold. So I'd get a company that was on sale and I'd invest in it, and then I'd just hold for a long period of time. And that has just worked for me. And maybe for you, it hasn't worked so well, but the biggest thing that I would say is invest in what you know. Every time I'd invest in things that I didn't know really well, I always took a L on those investments. Every time I went into something where I wasn't really familiar with it and I just kind of heard it through the grapevine, and it could have been crypto, or it could have been, cannabis stock, or just anything. Like, these investments never ever worked out for me. So I am a huge proponent for investing in what you know. So if you know a specific company, whether it be Facebook or T-Mobile or Delta Airlines, right? All of these different companies, like one of my recent investments was in Shake Shack. So Shake Shack burgers, I know that business really well, and I've seen the growth and evolution of Shake Shack. I consume Shake Shack from time to time. So I saw where it currently was, and I said, you know what, this would be a good, company for me. And again, this is not me giving you investment advice, but just giving you a little bit of an idea of how I went about the wealth building process. And before though, I started investing in stocks. I was in I remember, I think it was called Wall Street Survivor. I was in like a virtual stock, a game that you can invest with no money, right? But just see how your investment would have gone. So it kind of mimics the stock market, and you can see if your investments would have done well, but you don't actually put money. So I kind of played around with that. And then I read some books, like I read the book Stocks for Dummies at one point, and tons of other books. But the idea is to get the knowledge. These days, you have YouTube University. You can learn how to essentially invest in anything. Like, so learn it before engaging in it. And just remember that you have to solidify that peace of mind fund, that security fund, before you even start investing. But setting up a brokerage account is the easiest thing. For those of you who don't have multiple streams of income, that's an easy way to kind of start the process of multiple streams of income. Now, the other way I went about my wealth was relationship capital, social capital. Social capital is of the utmost importance because your net worth is determined, your net worth determines your net worth. So if you want to grow your net worth, then you have to put a lot of time into your net work. We need to go from Rolex to the Rolodex, right? Like so many people are so just infatuated with this idea of buying material stuff, and you'd be quick to buy the Rolex and not quick to build your Rolodex. And I know I'm kind of dating myself here, but for those of you who are probably under 25 years old, you're like, what in the world is a Rolodex? And that's how we stored our contacts back in the day. Like you had this little flip card, right? And some of y'all are like, Josh, what you know about a Rolodex? Yeah, I caught the tail end of a Rolodex. I remember actually having a Rolodex where you write your contacts on it. And you can very well just build your wealth off of your connections. A lot of people are wealthy not necessarily because of how much money they have in the bank account, but because of their connections. They can make a few phone calls, they can raise capital, they can raise funding, all of that. And that's a big part of the process. In fact, my last company that I launched, I raised capital from my connections, from people that I've stayed connected with over the years. So that's a big part of the process as well. Taking care of your health is the next thing. So it it's so important to understand that health is wealth. You have to take care of your health. This whole wealth talk is irrelevant if you're not taking care of your health. So that should be foundational. And last but not least is your spirituality. You're taking care of your spiritual life and asking for divine guidance, integrating God into your wealth, integrating God into your business, into your money and your financial situation. That has been such a game changer for me, understanding that process of praying and meditating and integrating God into everything that I do that's pertaining to my money. And I feel like if you go about your wealth in that way, it'll completely change your life. And if you want to build long-term generational wealth and you're doing it without your spirituality, I feel like you're missing out on such a powerful way of going about the wealth building process. I don't believe that we were put on this planet to just be impoverished and suffer and always be stressing about money. And I know for a lot of you and a lot of us, let's be real, even if you have money, money is just it causes a lot of stress for your average person. And this is probably top three stresses in your life. If I had to guess, based on all of my years of mentoring and coaching, if I had to guess what are the top three stresses in your life, I could almost guarantee that money's up there. And just so that you know, and even for me, money's up there. There's always something, because even if you get the money, what tends to happen is you raise your quality of life. And then now you have a new edge. Now you have a new sort of like comfort zone and edge of your comfort zone based off of the new standards you've set for yourself. It's called Parkinson's effect. So let's just say you get a $20,000 a year raise with your career. Guess what? The average person is probably going to upgrade their vehicle. The average person may upgrade their home, upgrade their lifestyle, take a few more vacations, buy more nice clothes, and you end up spending that money on something. So that's why getting the basics is so important. The psychology, right? Having emotional control, because the greatest threat to your wealth will always be you. And I love sharing the African proverb that if there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. So you have to get you right, get your health right, get your mind right, get your spirituality right. And then from there, you get the knowledge on the money. You get your taxes in order, especially in this season. Don't even file for an extension. You've been doing that far too long. Get it done if you can get it done. If you have the ability to get it done, knock it out. Get your credit in order. Start paying off what you need to pay off. Maybe you have to reach out to TransUnion or Equifax or any of these companies to really get that in order. Maybe you have to set up your will because you still haven't set up a will. Guys, let's change these generational cycles. Let's break these generational cycles. We've been going far too long with not going about our wealth the right way. I believe that we have a moral obligation to change the way we've been going about it. Another thing is your brand. Solidify your brand, build your brand. We're in the 21st century. In 2024, your financial blueprint is your resume. The way you go about building your brand and your perceived value in the marketplace, that is your resume today. So be mindful of how you portray yourself online, because it does play a major part in a lot of the opportunities you get. Network. Go out there and network. You can't do this alone. You have to build your community. So these days, it's like God, it's family, it's building my community, it's taking care of my health, being in tune with the spirituality. It's a holistic approach to going about your wealth. It's not just the money. So I want to stress that to those of you who maybe you work a job and you're probably not making that much money to be able to invest in other things and do, maybe there's more month at the end of the money. Maybe you find yourself check to check every single week. Guess what? You can do some research. You can find a side hustle. You can find other ways, but get a budget together. When was the last time some of you have actually put together a budget? When was the last time you looked at your monthly expenses and said, you know what? I could probably do without a few of these subscriptions. I could probably get rid of this. I can cut back on this. I can give up eating at the restaurant every single week. I can give up on even alcohol for a season because you've been blowing a lot of your money on that, right? But the biggest thing is to take care of you, because if you don't take care of you, your emotions will get the best of you and you'll end up engaging in retail therapy. You'll end up engaging in blowing your money on things that can fill you with temporary satisfaction, things that can fuel your flesh, because you're sad, you're depressed, you have anxiety. And typically the first thing that we do when we're in that situation is we overeat or we spend our money on things that we don't really need to spend our money on. So that's why on the Breakfast Club, I'm so adamant about teaching about mindset, teaching about the holistic approach to wellness, from your faith to your fitness, to your family, to your fortune, to your fun. That entire process, because once you take care of the whole you, the well-being of your whole being, then you can truly enhance your wealth. You're not going to be able to enhance your wealth and not take care of you. And the people who have taken that approach, you end up finding that they end up sabotaging their wealth and they end up reverting back to where they were. So if you can focus on you as the foundation and really decide, okay, how am I going to go about enhancing my wealth, whether it be cutting back, whether it be investing multiple streams of income, investing in different programs, coaches, whatever you have to do, but invest in you. That's my biggest recommendation. Invest in you and make 2024 the year that you get your financial household in order. 2024 is the number 8. the number 8, when you add up all the numbers, and the number 8 is for abundance and prosperity. There's never been a better time in humanity to go about building your wealth than right now. We are in the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of humankind. And go out there and get you some. Don't feel like you have to struggle. Don't feel that even if you work 9 to 5 and you're not making the money, maybe even if you're on minimum wage, guess what? You can turn that around. At least get everything else under control. I know for some of you, you're probably thinking, "Oh, that's easier said than done." Listen, I've been there. I've been there. I've crossed every aspect of the socioeconomic spectrum. I know what it's like to be a poor man. I know what it's like to be a wealthy man. And one thing that I can tell you is the biggest thing that you have to do is your mindset. You have to work on your mindset, and you have to get resourcefulness, because there is no shortage of resources out there. There's just a shortage of resourcefulness. So go out there, make the connections, because the greatest opportunities is not going to come from a piece of paper. My degree, I don't use my degree today, and I have a degree in business. I don't really use it, never really had to use it for anything that I engaged in. But there were a lot of connections that I made, and that's really where the greatest wealth came from. It wasn't from the piece of paper, it was from the connections. The greatest opportunities are going to come from people that you know. Okay, so go out there, network, get your financial literacy up, invest in you, and I can promise you things are going to look a lot different if you take this serious in 2024. So, ladies and gentlemen, breakfast is served. I hope that this was valuable for each and every one of you. If it was, drop a comment in the comment thread. If you're on Facebook, like, comment, share, tag. It all helps get this message out. There are so many people who need this information, and I know that it can truly be a blessing for a lot of people who are currently struggling with this, which is the vast majority of people these days. So, if it was a blessing for you today, if it was very valuable for you, I read through all of my comments. Thank you so much. And reach out to Keia. Go send her, even if you just want information on it, even if you decide not to participate in it, just reach out to her, send her a DM, write the words info, and she'll be more than happy to, kind of steer you in the right direction. Even if you just want to know, hey, how does this policy stuff work? I'm a little bit confused on it. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to go about a will, like any of that. She's going to be more than happy to help you guys. We've been really nurturing our community and making sure that our community is supported and guided in the right way. And I know that this is a big pain point for you guys. And we just really want to help support you guys on this journey on building a financial foundation for your future generations to come. So God bless you guys. I'll be seeing you next Tuesday. Breakfast is officially served. Take care. Thanks again for tuning into this episode. It would mean the world to me if you can follow, subscribe, share, or even leave a review. I look forward to putting out more content, and we'll see you on another episode.